Hello, everyone. I'm Pastor Rob, and welcome to Pastor Rob Presents Fun with Flagons. Thank you for joining us for episode number 3 of this little series I've started. Started as a little exercise just to, really as an excuse really to test my new incense burner, but now it's becoming sort of fun series where I educate everyone on some common and little known parts about worship, material objects, and we'll get more into other stuff later. Like I said, episode 1 was all about incense. The last episode a few weeks ago was about sacred vessels used for communion. Today we're going to talk about vestments. Now, vestments are the things that pastors like me wear during worship and during other times. There is a long, exhaustive list. I think about 2/3 of the ones I'm going to talk about, so I actually will put them on and show them to you. We'll do that in the sanctuary. But yeah, so today's going to be all about vestments. So stay tuned and we'll learn more together about the things that pastors like me wear on Sundays. So our first item here is the clergy shirt, as you can see. It's something that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. They come in a variety of colors, most commonly black, like you see me wearing, but I also have gray, blue, red that I wore for Pentecost last week. And there's various variations of this shirt. You'll see I have what's called the tab collar. It's this little piece of white showing here. There's also the full band collar that's white all the way around. Pastor Steve Patrick wears a style like that. That one's often referred to as the dog collar, just because of the way it looks. And there's also a weird hybrid version where you have the tab in the front, but then you see white on top all the way around. So it's kind of like a full band tucked into the black. So it's not as common anymore. I do have some pastor friends who will use those, but it's not as common. You'll see in a lot of like older pastors' pictures. I believe the portrait of Pastor Fisher out here actually has him wearing that kind of collar. There's no real clear meaning behind the collar. It most likely has evolved from clergy dress over time with these stiff white collars that a lot of pastors would wear. There is the theory that it evolved from the Roman slave collar. They like to say that with especially with the tab version, because like the tab would be on the other side and that would be like where the chain is. I don't know how true that actually is, but that is one of the stories told about the origin of the clergy shirt. I believe it's just really an evolution of the dress that was worn by pastors throughout time, especially with like the stiff white collars. Now, you see, mine is it's like a dress shirt style. The buttons are hidden behind this little thing here, but this is basically a dress shirt style. They also make polo shirts that are like clergy shirts. There are tunics. There are dresses for female pastors it's basically like a black dress with the collar on top. And then there's also like other like gimmicky type things. Like I've seen T-shirts that have like a little white tab on the band of the collar, or a baseball cap that's got like the tab in it. I prefer wearing the tab style. It's a little more comfortable for me. It's ease of access. Like when it's really warm, or if I'm getting ready to leave church, I can always just pop the tab out like this under the top button, and I'm good to go. And also the tabs then don't turn like yellow from my sweat. The tab is completely tucked in here. This is just the style I prefer. Other pastors can wear, like I said, like Pastor Steve wears the full band. Some pastors don't even wear them at all. And it all depends on their personal preference. But this is the clergy shirt, the most basic vestment that's commonly worn by pastors. Now, this is one of my favorite pieces of, this is one of my favorite vestments to wear. This is called the cassock. It might look different from the clergy shirt just based on the view you got now, but this is basically like a black robe that I would wear. It's more commonly associated with the Roman Catholic Church and the Episcopal Church, and by extension the Anglican Church. Not as common among Lutherans, but it is making a comeback, and I do enjoy it. So this evolved from typical everyday dress wear or everyday wear for Catholic priests. For any of you who have watched the BBC show Father Brown, my wife is a huge fan, so that's why I know about the show. You'll notice that the character Father Brown is often wearing a black cassock most of the time. Now, like everything else for vestments, there are two different styles. There is the Roman style and the Anglican style. So the difference is how they're fastened. So the Roman style, which might be the most familiar one, is like the one Catholic priests would wear, and it's got buttons going from the top all the way down. I've worn one of those before. Actually, my seminary had Roman cassocks in the sacristy to wear. They're not fun because of all the buttons, especially if a button breaks or pops or whatever. I didn't quite enjoy them. I actually prefer this style. This style right here is called the Anglican style cassock. Now, and the difference with that is this one is a side enclosure, like right up here on the shoulder. That's how that's how you close it up. So it's like one seamless look in the front here with a pleat here and then open here. So it's more flat looking. It's easier to use, easier to wear, in my opinion. One thing you'll note about black cassocks, you'll see my collar here. I haven't taken my clergy shirt off. You'll see the white poke through. These are designed that way on purpose. They have like a collar on top here with an opening. And that opening is so your white can show through. Now, because I wear tab collars, as I demonstrated previously, whenever I wear my cassock, I wear a black shirt because just a little bit of the shirt peeks through here. And so if I'm wearing something like my blue or red shirt, you'll see it and it doesn't quite look right. So I always make sure to wear a black shirt with this. Now, if you wear, pastors who wear the full band collar, they don't have to worry about that so much because the rest of their shirt is hidden. But this is the cassock. Now, it's fashion, it's like most robes, you would have to have some sort of like belt around it. Now, most cassocks have a flat band signature. It looks just basically like a flat belt with a couple little like flat pieces on the bottom here. I don't have those because that's basically playing roulette. And I say that because the sizes aren't always accurate when you buy them. So you might buy one and it might be too small or too big, even though you gave your correct waist size. So I prefer the tried and true rope signature. Now, signature, I'll go over right now, that's basically the way you keep your alb or cassock tied to you, or keep it fastened in your front. Otherwise, this thing would just be flapping all over the place. So this is to keep it looking nice in the front. Like I said, I use the rope ones. Now this next one actually pairs with the cassock, which is why I'm still wearing it. You'll see I put this white thing over top. This is called a surplice. Surplices pair with cassocks. You really don't wear it you don't wear it by itself, you wear it with the cassock. Now, this is to give a more formal look to the cassock. So for worship, Catholic priests who wear the cassock all day would then put the surplice over it for worship. It acts as your robe of sorts. Now you notice it's white, and that's the color that these typically are. And just like with cassocks, there are two styles of these. There is the Anglican style and the Roman style. Now you think because I wear an Anglican cassock, I'm wearing an Anglican surplice. That's actually incorrect. This is actually a Roman surplice. And again, I chose it because of style. So Roman surplices, as you can see, are very angular, boxy. There's only the two pleats here in the front. It's got the more boxy opening here for the head. The Anglican version, however, is round around the neck and lots of pleats. So it looks very poofy, in my opinion. And I've worn one of those before as well, which is why I went with this style, because this is more meat, I like the more boxy style. But like this is basically used for worship services. Now this one you should all be familiar with. This is what I typically wear on a Sunday. This is called an alb. Now albs evolved from first century clothing, and I imagine that pastors kept wearing these as a way to distinguish themselves as fashion evolved. So, like everything else, there are multiple styles of these. There's this style which has the side closure, like my cassock. There is front zippers. There's ones you pull over your head. all different styles. It all depends on really the pastor and what kind you wear. Some of them even have a little cutout on top so your collar will show through. Mine doesn't. And like a cassock, you wear it with a cincture, although you don't have to. If you have a pullover style that's just all one piece, you really don't need a cincture. This is mostly to keep the loose pieces like this here in place. Albs are worn. I wear my alb every Sunday. Albs are worn traditionally for services where Holy Communion is being celebrated. I forgot to mention with the cassock and surplice that those are typically worn by Lutheran pastors when communion is not being celebrated. You may have noticed that I have worn a cassock and surplice, I think 2 or 3 times here so far. My first Sunday here, I wasn't ordained yet, so I couldn't do communion. And then back in January when I had COVID, I was clear to come back, but I didn't want to do communion because I didn't want to take that chance. So you see me wear the cassock and surplice then. But typically I wear this alb. But you notice there is something missing though. I mean, I don't wear just an alb on Sunday. There is something else I wear with the alb. The thing that's missing is this. If you guessed stole, you'd be correct. So this stole is a sign of my ordination. If you're not ordained, you don't wear a stole. There's some debate as to what it actually means. Theologically speaking, we say the stole represents the yoke of burden that Jesus took for us. So this is like the yoke over our neck. And like with everything else, there are multiple styles. You can get these in long, short, wide, thin. Colors represent the liturgical season. I have my green one up because we're entering the green season of summer pretty quickly, even though behind me you see we still got the red up from Pentecost. We'll be entering the green season soon. They can be plain colored, they can have symbols, like this one has the Alpha and the Omega on it. I have others that have the Luther rose or Advent candles. It all depends on the season and your personal taste. Some pastors will have different colors for each season. Some will just wear a more generic one all year round. Some won't even wear this at all. If they don't wear an alb, they typically don't wear a stole. You can wear a stole without the alb. I have one I take, it's a travel stole. I use it for graveside funerals. I'll be using it for our church picnic this Sunday. But typically you wear it with an alb or a robe. There is a variation for deacons. So within the church, we have pastors and deacons, and depending on what church you're in, it can have different meanings. In the Lutheran Church, pastors are ministers of word and sacrament, where deacons are ministers of word and service. In the Catholic Church, deacons are, it's a similar connotation, but deacons can be married, whereas priests can't. Now with deacons, they don't wear traditionally a stole, they wear more of a sash. Either to the right or to the left. Some churches will use them for assisting ministers to wear. That's actually incorrect. The sash is the same as the stole. It is a sacred vestment for those who are ordained. And just like with stoles, just like with stoles, the sashes they can be plain, they can be decorated, they can be different colors. Pretty much whatever goes for a stole happens with a sash. So the last one I have to actually wear, there are more I'm going to explain in a minute, but the last one I have to wear is this. This is called a chasuble. Now, you notice I'm wearing a blue one because it's actually the only one I own. It was gifted to me by a colleague of mine on my ordination, so this is for the season of Advent. Now, with chasubles, it's an evolution of early clothing. This was more like a tunic or a poncho, and it kind of just evolved into this sacred vestment for churches. Now, pastors will wear these traditionally on Sundays when we are doing communion. Typically, if you're not doing communion, you wouldn't wear the chasuble. Now, chasubles can come, like I said, they come in different colors, they can come in different sizes. There's also different theories of when you would wear it. Some pastors I know would not put the chasuble on until right before they celebrate communion. Others have it on for the entire service. It all depends on the pastor's personal preference. Myself, I don't wear a chasuble. For some practical and personal reasons. Practical reasons is yet another layer on top of my robe. So like in the middle of summer, even though we have air conditioning in here, it would get very hot having this extra layer on. They're also expensive. These things are not cheap, and unless your church has their own set of chasubles, it's really not something that you want to invest in yourself personally, unless you just also get this windfall of money you want to spend on vestments. So that's why I don't have them. Personally speaking, as you notice, you don't see my stole. There is a stole under here. There's a matching stole that goes with it, but I don't like to hide the stole. My stoles are, they have some symbolism on them. I think they're gorgeous. I don't want to hide them under something, so that's why I don't wear a chasuble. And like I said, also my church doesn't have any, so I don't wear it for that reason as well. This is a gift, so that's why I am putting it on right now. I probably will wear it at some point. It is a beautiful, beautiful one. It was, I believe, passed down through many different pastors as others have been ordained. So this is a close gift to my heart, one that I will wear at some point. So you think we're done? You think that's all the vestments there are? Well, wrong. And as you can see, I'm still wearing the clergy shirt, but I did take the tab out. There are other vestments that are worn in other traditions of our faith, even within the Lutheran Church. A variation of the chasuble called the dalmatic is worn by deacons for the same purpose as priests would wear a chasuble. There is one called a cope. It's sort of like I don't want you to think of it as a cape because that's a bit of a bad way of thinking of it, but it's a garment that you would drape over, almost like a shawl over you, and there's a metal fastener, so it's open in the front, and sometimes it will have a hood. Those are often worn by bishops, and it's sort of like the preaching equivalent to wearing a chasuble. You would wear the cope when you're preaching, you wear the chasuble when you're doing communion. A friend of mine actually, when I was visiting him a few years ago, he wore a cope for his sermon, took it off, put a chasuble on for preaching, and then took the chasuble off and had just his alban at the end of the service. That's dedication. Not quite there. But yeah, so that's the cope. There's something called a Geneva gown or preaching gown. You've seen them mostly in Presbyterian churches, hence Geneva gown, because that's where John Calvin hailed from. Or you'll see them also in Baptist churches. They're typically black. They look like a graduation robe, like the most common like a doctoral robe, but without the felt stripes on the sleeve. Sometimes they have almost like a built-in stole, kind of like sewn into the front near the zipper. And like I said, they're most commonly black. They do make white ones, and I have seen some Baptist pastors wear white Geneva gowns. They were common in the Lutheran Church up through the 19th century. If you look at some old pictures of Lutheran pastors, they'll have a Geneva gown on. And then accompanying the Geneva gown are something called preaching tabs. And this is something I'm actually looking to try to get a hold of sometime. Preaching tabs are an addition to your typical clergy collar. So you have your collar up here, and then there's these two white rectangles that come down at an angle in front of you. And it can be varying lengths and widths. Those have their origin in the legal profession. Especially if you go to England nowadays, you'll still see barristers, lawyers, and judges wearing those tabs. And it's a sign of the legal profession, and I believe we as Lutherans use them because it's sort of like the dichotomy of the law and gospel. So you wear the law tabs with the preaching or gospel robe. And those Geneva gowns are rooted in academia, which is why you still see them used for graduations. So it's that whole, I believe by combining the two, you're combining the preaching, which is the gospel, and you have the tabs of law, which some say the two tabs represent the tablets of the Ten Commandments. That's another one of those stories that's out there. Really, it's the fact that they're rooted in the law profession. You'll still see some pastors in Europe wear them. You'll see Anglican pastors wear them. Some Lutheran pastors even still wear them. Like I said, I'm looking to get a pair of them to wear for special services. Now, there are many other vestments out there I haven't covered. Some more in the obscure. There's, I can't think of the name of it offhand right now, but it looks almost kind of like a towel you have on your wrist, and they believe that that's kind of the origin of that one. There's plenty of others. There's outerwear, there's headwear. You'll see the bishops have different kinds of headwear that they have. But I just covered the ones that are more common today. So, thank you for tuning in to Pastor Rob Presents Fun with Flagons. I enjoy doing these videos, and I am looking forward to doing my next one. I don't know I'm going to do it on yet. There are still many topics I can cover here, from the practical physical items to more what we do in worship. But again, thank you for watching, and stay tuned for future videos to come out.